Hey, folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead live stream. It is Saturday night live stream. And yes, I know, to disappoint all of you, I am once again doing this alone. Don't worry. My wife, she's got some things she's going through medically, so she certainly needs some prayers. She might jump in here on the chat here in a little bit. We don't think it's severe. She just is having like a nonstop allergic reaction to no one knows. They've run tests, they can't figure out what's going on. So she's very miserable, and it's just I just told her don't worry about the live streams for a while till she gets better, because she's just not in a good place physically because of all of it. So yeah, send out some prayers for her if you don't mind. I'm sure she will appreciate it and definitely needs them. She's just been kind of miserable the last few weeks. So anyways, that's what's going on there. Thank you all for stopping by. A bunch of people already in the chat. We've got Jesus in the Rumble chat, Christy in the Rumble chat, and then my goodness, a whole bunch of people. We got South Carolina on here, Virginia, Texas, Michigan, Ohio, Central Florida, Arkansas, Michigan, Kentucky, Minnesota, Michigan. Well, a bunch of Michigan people representing tonight. Texas, Ozark Mountain Country in Missouri. Amen to that. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Florida, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, Georgia, Kentucky, California. We know you're a foreigner, you Californians. We understand, but we still let you in. I'm just giving you a hard time. Don't worry about it. My goodness. All kinds of people. Hey, Jason Casper, my goodness, brother. Thank you so much. That is super generous for that. We sure appreciate that blessing. If you're not familiar with Jason Casper, he's got his own YouTube channel you should check out. If you're wanting kind of prepper, well, it's not kind of, it is. It's prepper content, but he does a lot of like trading, market trading, cryptocurrency stuff, day trading. So if you're interested in any of that, go check out Jason Casper's YouTube channel. We did a video together several weeks back. He is a super, super amazing guy. We talked, off camera and stuff, and I was just amazingly impressed at the guy. Sherry is in the house, one of our good friends. Very good friends. Thank you very much. Actually, I need to get a hold of Sherry because I know there's someone that's going to be moving down near you that you guys might want to make contact with. I was notified the other day. They contacted me and said they bought property, and they told me where it was. And I'm like, well, I know someone that's just a few miles away, and they're like-minded and brethren. So I got to get a hold of you folks for that. All kinds of stuff going on. Let's see. Travis, do you think well-made black powder will be good bartering? I do. It's been a long time since I've talked about black powder. Depending on the severity of a collapse, and I know we're taking this scenario pretty extreme, but don't discount black powder as coming back. I mean, if we actually went through, again, very hypothetical, but if we actually went through a really big, major collapse that lasted a very long time, it's quite possible that, standard cartridge, smokeless powder ammunition may become harder and harder to come by. And things like the old muzzle loading black powder stuff may become more and more likely to use. I know a lot of you are saying, man, that, going back to that, if nothing else for hunting, and there's some good quality modern muzzle loading weapons, and then there's some really good quality reproduction. I've got it's not handy where I can grab it. Well, it used to hang back here. It used to hang all the time. A revolver, a cap and ball revolver, and I have shot that thing numerous times, and it's quite destructive. A 44 caliber Remington, 1858 Remington, it would do the job. So I wouldn't discount black powder at all. Lynn Dudley, thank you very much. Another thing with black powder, and I know that some of you may have some differences of opinions on this, and that is fine. But folks that in their past have done things criminally, they've lost the right to own a firearm, can own black powder in most every state as that I am aware of. And there I personally know, and I've known in the past people that 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, they did something when they were young and it was stupid and they got charged with a felony. And here they are 10, 20 years later, and an upstanding person. They're a good person, but they can't own a firearm. So black powders, I was just actually, it's funny you should mention this. This has nothing to do with what I was going to talk about tonight, but I found a website. I don't even know who they are. I'd have to look at, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a company that's making muzzle loading double barrel shotguns. They're like Derringers, but they're 12 gauge muzzle loading double barrel shotguns, little pistol Derringers. And I have no clue why I need one. But when I was on their website, I thought I would really like to have one of those. I don't know why. I mean, there's certainly a lot better things that you can use, but yeah, there's just something nostalgic about that and just kind of cool. Got Pacific Northwest up in Oregon representing. Let's see. How important do you think gas masks are to have for the family? It's quite an investment. Well, that's a good question. And I think that they have a place, but they have become very expensive. 20 years ago, you could buy good quality surplus gas mask for $30, $40 that were still very usable. But nowadays, you can't hardly touch one for less than $200 or $300. So yes, it is a big investment. Maybe you buy one, but if you have a wife and 2 or 3 kids, that can get very expensive. On the other hand, are they needed? Well, I am not necessarily an expert, but I am certified in chemical, nuclear, and biological stuff. So, they're really only going to be effective or needed. They're really only going to be needed if you're actually near a chemical attack. Now, biological is different. Depending on the scenario, you may not necessarily need a gas mask. A good N95 or N100 might do okay, depending on it. There's so many variables on gas masks. Gas masks are good in combat because sometimes gases are used in combat. But for the civilian, don't know. I could see scenarios where it could happen, but I'm not necessarily sure. Not necessarily sure that I would make that a high priority. And maybe I don't know if I'm giving bad advice. It's just me personally. Gas mask with no beards. Well, if I had a gas mask in my kit, I would certainly carry a razor with it because it doesn't take that long, and there's been studies proven that you don't have to have it shaved to the skin for it to get to seal. Now, as far as nuclear, most of what you will experience and most of what the average person experiences in nuclear kind of fallout, a gas mask is not necessary because the radioactive particles for most, don't jump on here and beat me up. I'm saying most, this is very general. It's the dust. So, you see the nuclear weapon go off, the big mushroom cloud, it blows a bunch of dirt and pulverized concrete and people, particles, and everything up into the sky. They become radioactive and then they fall down. That's the fallout. Well, they are radioactive and they can certainly, kill you. They're deadly depending on how fresh it is, how close you are, all these various variables. But they're not necessarily aerosol. Even just a simple mask will usually protect you from breathing them in because they're larger particles. You have to understand a gas mask is filtering out very, very, very tiny particles. And so you're limited on what the average person is going to experience that would need that level of protection, good, like I said, N95s, N100s, or even better, of the bigger masks that are substantially cheaper than a gas mask might just be fine. It's really all in what you are preparing for, what you think. Someone says they look pretty cool for LARPing. Yeah, that's true. The train wreck in Ohio, it may have been a good idea for them to have gas masks. That's the thing. They're really good for harmful gases that you might experience. It's just uh, let's see. The beard and gas mask. The U.S. military is the only baby face. There are other militaries. In fact, we're pretty much the only military that does not allow beards, and others allow them, and they make them work fine. I've seen testing done, maybe obviously not as long as mine, but a beard that's a half inch, maybe even up to an inch. If you slather on petroleum jelly around, see that little moth miller thing flying around in here, then it'll make a pretty good seal. See it? It got in when I opened the door. Anyways, so there's all that. I do have a weekly news brief. Yep, got a weekly news brief going. There are 66, and I did not plan on there being a double six there, but 66 items on the news weekly news recap, and we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. Just going back and checking. There is a lot of stuff going on, and it is a great stock up for propane heat. Oops, it missed it. Yeah, people should really, who is this? FTSR US Group, Field Tactical Self-Reliance. People really need to be stocking up on stuff to heat your home. There's a lot of predictions in the weather that this is going to be, especially for the central United States, a pretty harsh winter. I mean, we've already set record colds here in the Ozarks. Now it's supposed to be 80 in like the next few days, but we've already set record colds temperatures. So they're talking about some really, really cold weather this year. And if you look at the stuff of the solar cycle and what the sun is doing, the possibility of some really harsh weather, you better probably be preparing for that. So propane, heaters, firewood, all that kind of stuff. People are asking about my wife. That's obviously wasn't here when I first started. She is okay. She's not feeling good. She does need your prayers. She is, and we don't even know. She actually went to the doctor the other day, and they ran a bunch of tests because she's having this kind of constant allergic reaction, and it's all over her body. They have no idea. Nothing has changed in our lives, anything. So we're not really sure. And so she's very, very miserable. So that's why she's not involved in the chat tonight. Anyways, let's see. Michigan's in the house. Grandma Ginger's in the house. Grandma Ginger also needs some prayers. So I don't need to go into the detail. Just trust me, Grandma Ginger and her whole family needs prayers. So please, we lift her and her family up in prayers every night in our little family circle. And if you can remember Grandma Ginger in prayer, I know that her and her family would certainly appreciate it. Someone asked for a good brand of emergency radio. So are we talking about to communicate like, well, this is a little FSR, this kind of walkie-talkie stuff. Baofangs are cheap and they function, but remember the word cheap. They're not known for lasting really long under harder conditions. So if you have them now and you're keeping them nice and clean and dry and perfect, they'll last. But if they get wet or fall to the ground and bounce off the concrete and stuff, um, they don't work so well. But you can buy them for like 20 bucks a piece sometimes. And so does it hurt to buy up 5 or 6 of them and just stick them away? No, of course not. You can uh, r do all kinds of stuff with them. Ham, frequencies, GMRS, FRS, MERS, listen to emergency weather radios, all kinds of stuff. But I would certainly try to get a better quality, than just that. There are several out there. Um, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Wuxon makes a very good GMRS type radio. Yaesu has always been my kind of go-to ham radio. But don't be discouraged too much from these cheaper ones. Just make sure you have a couple of backups in case they fail. Yeah, the expensive, the Yaesu VX6R, I've got, well, they're over here, but they're out of reach, and I'm not getting up. But yeah, those are good. But the little bow things are not bad to have as just I buy them. Here's what I've done. And I got them back when they were like 15, $17 a piece. I invested in several Baofeng radios, and I have them already programmed and charged so that if something happens and maybe people in our tribe or even my neighbors, I can hand them out to them and say, here's a radio. It's programmed on our frequency, and you can talk. So that's what I do with the Baofeng radios. I saw Bruce Frazier's name in the house. So, hey, Bruce, how's it going? Let's get into. Oh, we got another one here. Thank you, Jordan B. Bay. Um, Set up a CB station with a 102-inch whip antenna. Get out by 20. Yes, do not discount CB. I run CB. I mean, I'm a ham radio guy. I've had a ham radio license for 20 years. We have GMRS. I have an HF, which is the stuff that you can talk on the other side of the planet. But I still have CB radio. I have a CB radio in my vehicle, and we have a CB radio in our house, a very good quality CB radio. Because here's the thing, especially out in the rural parts of the country, but a lot of parts of the country, if communications go down, people are going to be using CBs because there's so many CB radios out there. You can go to any yard sale or thrift store or truck stop, a Walmart, anywhere, and pick up a CB radio. And so, and a lot of the old farmers and pickup trucks and hunters and outdoor enthusiasts and stuff, they have CB radios, right? So when everything falls apart, people are going to go back to CB radios. They're going to use them. And so you'll be able to communicate with people and hear what's going on. So everyone should have a CB radio, and they're not that expensive. And yes, if you get the right antenna and the right radio, you can communicate 10, 20 miles easily. I mean, much further if you really tweak things, but even just a decent, good CB radio with a really good antenna, you can get out quite a bit. So anyways, let's go ahead and get on to this. All right, this is the weekly news recap. This is from Saturday to Saturday, and this isn't everything. Certainly not nowadays because there's so much stuff going on. I mean, I could have multiple pages a day, but I try to hit the highlights, especially things that are kind of really affecting us, and we go over it when we get done with the live stream tonight. This will be posted on Twitter or X now, whatever, and then on the locals channel, and maybe a couple other places. All right, number one, 2 dead and 18 people injured in a shooting in Tampa, Florida. There's been several shootings recently. Number 2, the Biden administration prepares for Israel-Hamas war to expand across the Middle East. 3, Jordan asks for U.S. to deploy Patriot missile systems in its territory. More than 50 warships from 11 countries are now in the Middle East and Red Sea, and I actually saw earlier this afternoon that number is up to about 100. So when I typed this was several days ago. So it's now like 100 or more. Saudi Arabia is in a state of high alert due to the Middle Eastern conflict. Putin states that the United States is behind the deadly chaos in the Middle East. The U.S. Treasury is borrowing $776 billion to fund the government through the end of the year. I mean, we're already going into debt by ridiculous amounts every month. So we're going to just borrow another, $750 billion. Zelensky states that he feels betrayed by Western allies. Isn't that sad? Israel states that they will turn attention to Hezbollah after it is finished with Hamas. Homes in Paris are painted with the Star of David to identify where Jews live, much like what was seen during World War II in Germany. The Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen have declared war on Israel. U.S. sends an additional 300 troops to the Middle East. The Pentagon states that Putin will succeed in Ukraine if U.S. halts supplies. Russia says Israel's airstrikes against Syria are unacceptable. The FBI director states foreign terrorist organizations may conduct attacks on U.S. soil. UN Relief Agency says that they have lost 67 relief workers so far in Gaza. Now, there's a theme in this week's news recap, and I want you to pay attention. Bolivia cuts diplomatic ties with Israel. The White House claims nearly 500 Americans are being held hostage in Gaza. Saudi Arabia says Israel continues to violate international law. The UAE strongly condemns Israel's airstrikes against refugee camps. Egypt deploys numerous tanks along the border with Gaza. Chile recalls its ambassador from Israel. The Pentagon officials confirmed several dozen U.S. Special Forces operators are working on the ground inside of Israel. Egypt calls airstrike against refugee camp by Israel inhumane. So did Russia, China, and numerous other countries. A Jordanian national living in Texas on an expired visa traveled through Palestine and was training to commit acts of terrorism, was arrested by the FBI. This guy also had illegally purchased weapons. So a narrative is starting to be built. Colombia cuts diplomatic ties with Israel. Internet and phones have been completely shut off in Gaza. The UN Director of Human Rights has resigned due to the actions Israel has taken. Infant mortality rates have seen the largest increase over the past 2 decades. So in the last year or so, infant mortality rates are skyrocketing. I wonder why. Elon Musk states that a civil war is brewing in America. Iran's supreme leader calls on Muslim countries to halt oil and food exports to Israel. Kim Jong-un orders North Korea to support the Palestinians. Jordan recalls its ambassador from Israel. U.S. mortgage applications fell 25.4% over the past 17 weeks to the lowest levels since 1995. So there are less people trying to buy homes since 1995. That's crazy. An 8,000 person caravan was detected headed towards Arizona. That's just an everyday thing down there. Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, states that the process of taming inflation will be bumpy. In other words, it's going to be rough, right? The U.S. tests another Minuteman III ICBM missile, which failed. I think that's the third or fourth one this year that we've tested, and it's failed. Putin revokes Russia's nuclear test treaty ban. So now they're going to start testing nuclear weapons. The United States border has seen 10 times the Chinese migrants than over the past 10 years. So this year, it's 10 times over what's normal for a normal year of Chinese migrants. Australia deploys troops and aircraft to the Middle East. Central Command cancels the Marines' 248th birthday ball due to unforeseen operational commitments in the Middle East. Bahrain recalls its ambassador from Israel. Israeli ground forces completely surround Gaza City. Russia's Wagner Group agrees to send air defense systems to Hezbollah. The United States Congress increases their own pay by $34,000 a year. So they gave themselves a raise, all the congressmen and senators. Isn't that wonderful? Don't you wish you could do that? Don't you wish you could just say, You know what? I deserve to make another $35,000 a year. I'm just gonna give myself a raise. I mean, they print the money, so might as well. The United States passes a $14.3 billion Israel emergency aid bill. Syria agrees to give Hezbollah SA-22 missile defense systems. The United States sends $425 million in weapons to Ukraine because Zelensky feels alone and forgotten, so we got to send him like a $500 million. The Iraq Minister of Defense orders its military to increase readiness status. A man from Arkansas, no offense to any of you Arkansas people. Well, I say that and I see Sister Kate from Shofar Mountain. She's from Arkansas or lives in Arkansas. No offense to you Arkansans. But a guy from Arkansas rams his truck into a gate at the Duke nuclear power plant in South Carolina. So is it just a coincidence, or do we no longer believe in coincidences? The United States hiring rate slows to the lowest level since January of 2021. The U.S. median household income drops 2.3% over last year. Producers of big ticket items are reporting a slowdown in purchases. They're, refrigerators and big screen TVs and boats, things like that, RVs, things that you don't need that you buy when you have extra money. Well, they're starting to see a slowdown in all that. Worldwide lithium shortage is predicted to happen by 2023, which is interesting because, well, all of this new technology requires it. So here's the question. If they're still pushing all this new technology, and yet we're going to run out of all the materials to make the new technology, what's the solution? If there were less people, they wouldn't need as much. Ding, ding, ding. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily it, but who knows? Honduras recalls its ambassador from Israel. Multiple large banks are reporting deposit delays in customers' accounts. The world's biggest shipper, boat shipping company, cuts 10,000 jobs. Citizens Bank of Iowa is closed by regulators, making it the sixth bank failure of this year. Turkey recalls its ambassador from Israel. The United States State Department urges Americans to leave Lebanon now. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters. Boy, that's a lot of P's there. I probably should have written this differently. Protesters are protesting in Washington, D.C., and thousands of them. And in Germany this weekend, there's lots. They're all over the place. A Jewish woman was stabbed in her home in France, and a swastika was left carved into her front door. A Pentagon confirms its use of spy planes and drones over Gaza. The Algerian parliament unanimously votes to approve war with Israel. A Jewish cemetery was torched and desecrated with swastikas in Vienna. And last but not least, F-16s finally arrive in Ukraine. PT, yes. I'm using Starlink right now. That's about the only way that I can do a live stream out here. There's no other available service where I live, period, that's capable of it. So yeah, lots of exciting things happening in the world, isn't there? Lots of exciting things happening. In fact, I need to have a cup of coffee for that. So, as a little personal side note, had a conversation on the phone with our oldest son, our oldest child that has the grandbabies, or they're not their grandbabies, they're our grandbabies. And it was really exciting because the oldest, she's getting old enough where she can actually have a phone conversation. So that was really cool. I guess it was the first time that we kind of talked on the phone, my little granddaughter. And so that was exciting. And I just thought of that picking this up. So anyways, let's look at the F-16s are arriving to Ukraine as the war ends. Yeah, that's just about the truth. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Is everybody behaving? We got Spring, Texas. We got someone from Thailand over on Rumble. Thailand. I didn't know anyone even watched me in Thailand. I appreciate you stopping by to listening. prayers for my wife. Yes, we got Rochester, New York in, we got Kentucky, all kinds of stuff, Missouri in the Rumble chat. So don't want to forget about the Rumble chat. And then we're also live streaming on Twitter or X. I still can't get to used to the X thing. I couldn't care less. But anyway, so that's where we're live streaming. Yes, someone says wag the dog. That's correct. Government will stretch out. Here's something that I heard. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I know this at first may sound really offensive to some people, but I want you to think about it. And I've talked about over the last 2 or 3 weeks the divisiveness, how everything that's been happening for the last few years, it's becoming more and more it divides us even further, right? Every time there's something that happens, the pandemic, the vaccine, the BLM, Antifa, Ukraine, and now Israel, and several other smaller things in between, what it's doing, it's pulling us apart. It used to be common in the United States when something happened, it brought us together. But that's not the case anymore. It's pulling us apart. And I want you to think about this. Whatever it is that whatever side you may consider yourself on, I know a lot of you say you're not on any side, and that's kind of where I'm at. But let's just say you're on a side. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying it's bad that you're picking a side in this conflict or the one in Ukraine and Russia or anything that's happening in the United States. Remember this, and with all other future things and psyops that they try to push on us, that the people that are running it on both sides, on all sides, are all part of this evil, globalist, satanic run organization. The heads of Israel, the heads of United States, the head of Iran and Syria and Iraq and Lebanon and Palestine and Russia and China and Germany and England and Australia and Japan, all of them. They're all in it together, folks. They're all part of the World Economic Forum. They're all part of all of these, secret societies. They all go to the same clubs. They all get all. It's all the same. They act like they hate each other in front of the TV screens, but then they all meet up, a few times a year at their big old closed door parties, and they slap each other on the back and sit there in the jacuzzis drinking their drinks and laughing at us. Remember that all of the stuff that's happening, it's all being run and orchestrated by people that all get along with each other, and they're all part of the same club, and you and I ain't in it. So remember that. Remember that there's no real good guys anymore when it comes to global politics. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Let's see. Let me look at saw some questions. Do you believe we have too much morals, common sense, too big of hearts, respect to stand up against the global elites? And Julio from Denver, you've got a good question. And in fact, I'm even going to put it up on the screen. That's a pretty good question. Do we believe that we have too much morals, common sense, too big of hearts, respect to stand up to the global elites and corrupt politicians in fear of getting in trouble? That's probably part of it. I think that their psyop that they have done for decades, for centuries maybe, has become very effective. And they have they've done a good job on convincing us to be pacifists, and so to speak, that we're to not be rebellious. That's it, to not be rebellious. And it's done a good job. So part of that, I think it's I don't know that it's that we have too much morals. I think it's that we've too many people has bought into the lie. My wife just texted me, let me know that I pronounced something wrong. I knew I did because I couldn't remember how it was pronounced, but it's those people in Yemen. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know that it's because we have too many morals and stuff. I think it's more that we just, too many people have bought into the lie. That's it. They've done a really good job. They've done a really good job of of convincing people to be obedient, to be, you know, complacent, that they've done a good job of making the world, making America a very comfortable place, okay? I've mentioned this all the time, um, and, um, there was a video that came out probably 15 years ago, I think, something like that, and it was called the what was it now? Um, Human Farming, I can't remember exactly what it was, Stefan Molyneux. I know the guy, um, uh, he kinda got off the rails on some things, but anyways, in that video, it's actually a really good video. He talks about how humans, oh, and I understand the guy, the last time I checked, he's an atheist and all that kinda stuff, but it doesn't change the message. That he was saying that, over the centuries, over humanity's history, we went from being pretty much every society was for the most part slaves, right? You had this king, this pharaoh, this emperor, and everyone was pretty much slaves. It was just different levels of slavery. And then these leaders, they learned that the more freedom that they give us, the more productive we are. And then we get into the modern era where they realize that if you give them, freedom, and you let them think that they're free. You let them think that they're free, you give them a lot of stuff, then people are really productive. And that is exactly what's happened. We have watched American society, Western society become more free, more productive, more modern, more comfortable, and people are less and less resistant. There's less people trying to break out of the system, and so that's where we're at. We have a system that most people are comfortable with, even though they know that it's awful. You ask the average person on the street, and it doesn't matter if they're, Democrat or Republican, they'll tell you that the system stinks, but they'll still stay with it. They'll still stay with it. That's my long version opinion. Free as cattle on the farmland. That's exactly what we are, a bunch of sheeple, which is why I tell you all the time to get prepared, because in the end, it's going to be, uh, you're going to have a choice. I think the choices are going to boil down to, you take the World Economic Forum, little smart city pod houses with great things. I mean, think of all these futuristic movies and TV shows. It looks great, and it's very possible that it could be like that. I'm not saying it will be, but it could be, where everything's just delivered at your doorstep. You go and you go to these nice, beautiful, trendy little restaurants, and you go to these beautifully manicured little parks, in your neighborhood. It's wonderful, except you have no freedoms. You can't do anything. They monitor you. You can't think outside the box. And so, um, but here's the thing. You're going to have a choice of living that life or living a life that's going to be tough. You may not even be able to have electricity. You may not be connected to the grid. You may not have access to the medical systems, food supplies, all that. Who knows? But you'll be free. And so that's why I tell people that they need to be self-sufficient and stock up. And I understand I'm explaining a more extreme scenario, but if you go back to Forbes magazine in 2016, it's still on their website, and you look at the interview of the World Economic Forum Great Reset interview with Klaus Schwab, that's exactly what he depicts. He talks about that the future, everyone will live in these beautiful smart cities and everything will be perfect, and they'll have to congregate. They won't be living in the rural land anymore. And so the interviewer says, well, what about the people that don't want to do that? And he says, well, they'll just be cut off. They'll be living out in the wilderness all on their own, and they're cut off from anything modern. They'll just be out there, little bands of people trying to survive. So if that happens, that's what you got to get prepared for. So there. Looking at the first frost is, so Redfish says that they had their first frost a few days ago. Yeah, we did too. Um, And then we got Paducah, Kentucky in here, New Mexico, North Carolina. Red Dawn is what Jim is saying. Yeah. Speaking of that, I'm going to show you because I get questions all the time, and none of these, I don't make any money off of this, and I'm not even going to leave any kind of affiliate links. I don't even think I have affiliate links for any of these, but I'm going to show you some books. These are not homestead books. They're not medical books. They're not Bible or anything. These are strictly prepper type books, because I get people ask all the time, what's some good prepper books? I just pulled 4 off that I think are really good. This one here, whoops, sorry about smacking the microphone. You'll have to look this up on your own. Oop, oop, let me try to get it where it's good. This one here is good. It's kind of like, say, for those of you that were in the military, this is like a military manual of how to do things, but it's for civilians. So for citizens. So if you in your little tribe, your little mag, you need to learn how to do things and how to move about, and terrain and formations, not like militia style necessarily, but more guerrilla stuff. This is a good book. He's working on some more of these. This one here, this is a good book. This is talking about if there was an ice age, a mini ice age, how to survive it. A lot of the stuff that's in this book pertains to if there was maybe a nuclear war or a CME or an EMP. They would all work. So this is a good book that you should probably think about picking up. All right. This one is a medical prepping book. This is a very good book. Now, this isn't naturopathic medicine. This is allopathic medicine. Some of you have seen there's a lot of YouTube channels pushing this, and it is a good book. It totally is a good book. It's huge. This thing, it's a big book. It's like a 5-pound book. I don't know. It's 600-700 pages. But that's a good one. And then the last one is one of my very favorite books for prepping, is this book. I don't think you can get this on Amazon. This is the 8th edition, came out in, was it 2020? Yeah, 2020. This is Dare to Prepare. I guess my wife is asking what the titles. I guess I should read them off. And I guess some people can't read. Dare to Prepare by Holly Deo. The Deos are kind of like the godfathers of modern preppers. This book here, everyone should have this book. It has a lot of amazing stuff in food, how to store food, how to figure, how long food will last, how much you need it. Talks about all sorts, everything, electricity, keeping food safe, living without power, hygiene, animals, terrorism attacks, nuclear type of fallout. Dare to Prepare. I'll go back through them real quick, though. The Survival Medicine Handbook by Joseph and Amy Alton, the Survival Medicine Handbook. And then Cold Times, Preparing for the Mini Ice Age by Anita Bailey. Cold Times, Preparing for the Mini Ice Age, Anita Bailey. And then the last one is the Professional Citizen Project by Jack Morris. Professional Citizen Project by Jack Morris. If you just Google any of those names, you should be able to, or search for any of those, you should be able to find them online. All right. So there's the books, because people are always asking me, and I thought I'd grab, every once in a while, I like to grab a few random books and just show you. And, Bibles are good too. Got a Bible here. Got another Bible here. Everyone's always asking, where's your Bible? I've got 3 sitting on my desk right now. This old one, someone gave me the other day, actually. It's an old Bible. They'd found it somewhere. And I like old Bibles, especially family Bibles and stuff. But this is an old one. It looks like it's probably at least from the 40s or so. Anyways, so there's that. Folks, I think it is pretty serious with what's going on. And I know we talk about it all the time. I talk about it. You talk about it with your friends and stuff. You watch it. And then there's always the trolls that are kind of laughing and mocking us. But things are getting pretty bad pretty quickly. And a lot of times I hear rumors that I can't verify. I tell you that sometimes. I hear these rumors I can't verify, but when I'm getting rumors from people that are the heads of banks, I've actually had 2 or 3 just in the last week. They either directly talk to me that they are high up in a bank, or they work for a bank and someone high up spoke to them. I've heard from people that are in the military, currently active in the military, people that's gotten called up to go over to the Middle East. Um, Things are looking pretty scary, pretty crazy, and we have to start preparing on our end, because some of these things could very negatively affect us. Um, things could happen quite quickly, and I'm trying to read as I'm speaking. You know how hard that is to read because on the screen it's like constantly going up, scrolling through, and it's hard to read that and talk at the same time. That's why I don't get to your comments when I'm doing this by myself that much. Someone asked what MAG is. MAG is an acronym for Mutual Assistance Group. Mutual Assistance Group, not a MAG like this. Not one of these, a mutual assistance group. See, I've got stuff all over my desk. Yes, it's similar to a tribe, but it's basically just a group of people. Someone in Rumble asked that. It's a group of people that's come together, that's committed to helping each other through rough times. Okay. Someone wants to know what the emblem on my hat is. Well, it's not anything official. Someone, I guess, created someone. Who's someone? So the stripes are running vertical, not horizontal like a normal flag. A red and white striped vertical flag like that was the Sons of Liberty in the Revolutionary War. And then this up here represents the Gadsden flag. So someone just designed this. I don't think this design was never officially used in the Revolution. But I figured it's kind of appropriate for what we're doing. We don't have to use the old stuff. We can create new. So there's that. Anyways, getting back to what my little rant. I would strongly advise everyone to start evaluating all of your preps. How good would you do if you had to lock down for 90 days? What if something happened? And there's a lot of things that could happen that would cause a person to have to lock down for let's say 100 days, 3 months. Because in if there's a banking collapse, if there was an EMP, if there was a terrorist attack on the grid, if there was a nuclear weapons attack, a volcano, a massive solar flare, and there has been some crazy ones. I don't know how many of you folks, how many of you folks pay attention to what goes on with the sun, but the sun has been doing some insane stuff this year, way more than ever in recorded history, in like modern recorded history, where they've actually kept real records. It's been way more active, and not only has it been more active, but the Earth is reacting much more negatively to it. And in the aurora borealis, you know that the northern lights, it gets really far south, like down to Arizona, Texas area, on average about once every 20 to 30 years. They can go back to the mid 1800s, and they can track it that about every 20 to 30 years, something will happen with the sun, and those northern lights can be seen almost down to the equator, like that far south. It's happened 5 times this year. 5 times this year. It normally only happens once, only 20 to 30 years. So yeah, it's a big deal. Anyways, the point that I'm getting at, there's so many really serious, massive things that's going on that even if just one of them happen, it could cause a lot of chaos. And if a couple of them happen, or a few of them, it really cause chaos. So I want to encourage everyone to be evaluating your preparation plans for what would you do if you had to lock down for 3 months, because 3 months is a good time period that all of the craziness in 3 months, things will either start getting better, or if they're not gonna get better for a very, very long time or ever, within 3 months, most of the death and damage, the initial stuff is over with. So if there was an EMP that took out the grid, the vast majority of the deaths because of that, it's gonna be over in 3 months. There's still gonna be chaos and violence and deaths, but the big bulk of it's gonna be in 3 months. So you should have plans to lock yourself down for at least 3 months. You really should. You should be stocking up on food. You should be stocking up on ways to secure your home. If you're in a city area, well, you've got a bigger road uphill road to secure your place. You're gonna make sure you've got food, water, medical stuff, sanitation stuff, defense of how to lock yourself down. If there was just chaos, if there were multiple terrorist attacks on this country and people just went crazy, if there was some type of external attack, China or Russia or Iran or someone officially attack us through missiles or even nuclear, it's going to be crazy. So I would strongly suggest you folks to be stocking up. I mean, it's getting to be that kind of serious. To be making sure that you're solid and you're ready for to be able to lock yourself down. So, yes, people started after Hurricane Sandy on Long Island, people started going crazy after 3 days. That's usually between the first 72 hours to 5 days. So between 3 and 5 days is usually when people start to kinda get crazy. So your first 3, maybe 5 days. If you live in a very populated, urban area, it's probably not gonna be 5 days. It'll be more like 2 or 3. But, if you live more rural, it may take a little longer, but 3 to 5 days, people will start getting crazy. People will start getting violent. They're gonna start getting hungry, and they're gonna start getting scared, and they're gonna start, petty theft, assaults, things like that to get what they need. They may even go to the point of breaking into your home. And after about a week or 2, that's when if in assuming that the collapse is ongoing, after about a few weeks, and when I say collapse, I'm not talking about just the power outage. I mean, we have power outage. I went through a power outage several years ago, almost 20 years ago, and the power was out for 14 days. And people didn't resort to eating each other in 14 days, but it's because government was still functioning, right? Things were still functioning. They were still, they were, and it was just a small area that was like that, a regional area. So they were shipping in things from outside that area to keep people afloat. If the whole country is that way, it's hard to ship things in, and the government itself is strongly, severely breaking down, and maybe they're having to be in defense mode of any outside forces coming in. That's when things get crazy. And so in those kind of scenarios, 2 to 3 weeks, people are gonna start it's gonna get crazy bad, like violent bad. And over the next, between 4 weeks and, 8 to 10 weeks is when you're gonna have a lot of violence, a lot of death, a lot of people dying from illnesses, from lack of medications, lack of electricity, to live. Some people need certain medical equipment, disease, poor hygiene and water and things like that. People are going to start dying because of that. And I'm not trying to paint a doomsday scenario. I'm just trying to tell you an extreme. I mean, it's possible, but it's certainly an extreme scenario, and why it's necessary to lock yourself down. If you're in an area where there's a lot of people and you're uncertain of the people, you need to have a plan in place that if it gets that bad, that you can very quickly batten down the hatches and just call it good for a while. You may not need it for 3 or 4 months. May only need it for a week or 2, and then the power finally comes back on and things start trying to normalize again. But you should certainly have that plan. Yeah, CPAP machines, all kinds of stuff that that people need to stay alive with that require electricity. Um, I'm going to do a shameless thing here. I'm going to leave a link in the description if anyone is interested in this. This is a 1 week food supply that's on sale till midnight tonight. 1 week of food for $49. You don't have to buy it, but I know that there are some people out there that's interested in that, so I just left a link in the description. Waterbug over on Rumble, thank you very much. He or she says, thank you for providing news that is not covered in mainstream media and sensible advice. Blessings to your family. Thank you very much, and blessings to you and your family. Yeah, lack of insulin and opioids will take millions rapidly. That's right. Think of the amount of people. This is what I've said, and I'm not putting anyone down, okay? But think of the amount of people that are on some kind of mental drug, whether it's an antidepressant or psychosomatic, any of that kind of stuff. All of these kind of drugs out there that are kind of a certain class of, there's multiple classifications that deal with behavior, mental, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not begrudging anyone that's on them, okay? But there's a high percentage of our population that takes this kind of stuff. What happens when that supply gets cut off? How many of those people may kind of lose it? Not everyone, certainly not everyone. There's a lot of people that'll learn to cope. They'll be, you know, very sad and depressed or having a hard time coping, but they'll be able to figure it out. But how many people won't be able to cope, won't be able to handle it? Because it's not just that they're not getting their meds, it's because they're not getting their internet, and they're not getting their cafe latte, mocha, frappy, whatever those things are, and they're not getting their, all the other self gratification from their TikToks and their likes and their thumbs. When all of that shuts down, how many people will just resort to craziness? Chinese Chicken says cannibalism will be rampant in the cities. I read don't ask me where, and don't trust that this is 100% accurate. I'm just going off of my memory. But there was an article at some point in the past that they believed in certain areas, certain urban areas where they already deal with crime and things, like the inner cities of St. Louis and New York and Chicago and places like that, that there are some professors and stuff that they believe that it's between 48 and 72 hours that there will be some people that will resort to cannibalism in some of these areas where society is already kind of broken down anyways. I'm not saying that those are that much worse people. It's just society's already started breaking down. It has been for decades, and it's progressively gotten worse. I mean, have you watched some of these videos out of LA and Philadelphia and Portland? All of these videos where it's just someone driving by and everyone is just all drugged out and bent over and plastered on the street and digging out garbage cans and tweaking and, doing all this crazy stuff because of the drugs. So what happens when those supplies get cut off? They can't eat, they're not getting their drugs, or they've lost all hope, so now they're doing even more drugs, crazier drugs. What do you think's going to happen? Huh? It's going to be crazy. So that's why we have to be prepared. That's why I encourage people to get out of these cities. I know most of the live stream tonight is very doomsday. See, that's the difference between when my wife's here. When my wife's here, we're talking about all kinds of natural things you can do to take care of your body, all kinds of positive butterfly things. And I get on here by myself and it's like, we're all going to be eating each other in 2 to 4 days. Take that, Canadian prepper. I have nothing against him. I don't know him other than watching his video every once in a while. He doesn't know who I am. Everyone always talks about him being the biggest doomsday YouTube prepper out there. And he is sometimes, and he even laughs about it. But he does put out pretty good, solid information. I have at times kind of tried to check up on his information that he puts out, and I have really not found a lot of incorrect stuff. sensationalizes things. That's what he does. Granny Fisher says that she misses my wife tonight. I know it's much more fun on here when she's on here. That's true. I believe that. He's dark sometimes, Canadian prepper, I guess. Um, I don't watch him that often, but every once in a while, you know, I'll watch him. But I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos anyways. I just don't. I have people all the time, "Oh, you're trying to copy so and so." I'm like, "Who in the world is that?" I have no idea what you're talking about. Uh, most of the YouTube videos that I watch aren't even prepper videos. I watch videos on a lot of how to do things. Um, like I've been what's those the bearded butcher guys? Bearded butcher brothers or something like that. I don't know why, but I've been watching them. I know how to process an animal, but I'm not good at it. I'm not any kind of professional butcher, right? You know, I can take care of a deer, I do goats and sheep, and I know how to do the basics and stuff, but I watch these guys because I want to get good at it. Why? I don't know. It's fun to watch, but I watch that kind of stuff. Anyways, probably Monkey Works. I watch him every once in a while. Monkey Works. Um, what do I recommend for a backup source for heat in a house? All right. Probably here's the thing. When you talk about backup sources, number one thing you should always thinking about is safety. Safety. Because most of these backup sources, they can blow up or they can produce methane gases and things like carbon dioxide, all that kind of stuff that can kill you. So you got to think of that. So the three sources that you could look at is propane heat. That's a popular one, but you want to make sure everything's vented properly. They do make some ventless propane heaters, but with propane heat, you can have a propane heater in most places legally and not violating kind of ordinances or anything like that as like a secondary backup heat. And it's not that expensive, and it stores a long time, but it can explode. It's a gas. It can leak and explode and kill people. The other one is wood heat. You can get a small stove. What I have advised to people, if you live in a house and you don't have a wood stove, and maybe because of the restrictions of your insurance or your home or your town or something, you can't have one. I would still have one. I just wouldn't have it hooked up. I'd get a smaller wood stove, and I know this is hillbilly, but you get you a piece of pretty heavy duty sheet metal that will fit inside your window. So you open your window up, and you take the screen out and cut it so that it fits in there, and then cut a circle in it so that you can pipe your pipe through it and then up through your chimney. I know there's a lot of people that's going to say that's crazy, but I couldn't tell you how many people I've known over the years that they have had um I don't know why I did that. That they have had their stove that way for years and never had a problem with it. And then the other thing is the kerosene heaters. This building that I'm in, this is a separate building from our house, and I have one of those kerosene heaters in here. It's not on right now. But those kerosene heaters work really, really well. But you got to buy the kerosene for it, right? Propane, you have to buy propane, but you can store that up, but it can explode, it can leak. Wood is probably the best thing. I have for this building here, I have a wood stove for this building, but I'm not in here all the time. This is an office with some storage in it. And so I wanted to have something that I could come in here and very quickly get some heat going and not have to worry about starting the fire and wait for a while. The diesel, so I put a diesel heater in here too. And so I can go in here and hit that diesel heater on, and it'll start throwing out some hot air very rapidly. So that's the three main things. You can also look at kerosene heaters. But if you have a good wood supply around your house because of trees, wood heat is the only way to really go. And even if you don't have a wood stove or a fireplace in your house, like I said, you can buy a smaller cast iron wood stove at like a farm supply store for usually under 500 bucks, sometimes even cheaper than that. I've seen them where you can get them for, 2 or 300 bucks, and just store it away. Have everything that you need, and it wouldn't take you that long to pipe it out through a window with a piece of sheet metal, and you've got a wood stove in your house. And it's the best heat, and it's the best renewable heat. And it's actually pretty safe as long as there's other things. You gotta have something on the behind the stove so that it doesn't catch the wall on fire and catch the floor on fire, but do some research, and honestly, a wood stove is the best. And even if you say, "Well, we're not allowed to have a wood stove where I'm at," when it's doo-doo hitting the fan, I don't care about that. I really don't. So, that's my opinion. If you live in an area like in the desert area or big cities where wood isn't as available, then maybe one of the others would be the right one. But, we heat with wood in our house, and then I have a couple of wood stoves that are just extra. Like, if I come across a good deal on a used wood stove, sometimes I'll pick it up just because it's extra. Maybe someone in my tribe will need it. Um, so, yeah, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Right now, this time of the year is probably not the best time to get one because, um, they're a little bit more expensive. Constitutional Stacker says Walmart.com has them for under $100. I'm assuming they're talking about, the little tent heaters. Yeah. I have one of those too. I have one of those, it's a titanium little fold-up tent heaters, and those things work great. You have to feed them a lot more, but they do put out some heat. But, yeah, I would certainly have even if it's just a small wood stove. If you had one of them little titanium heaters, I should do a video. I don't think I've ever done a video on that. Um, and those things work excellent. The one I have, it's, I don't know, probably this long, this wide. It's if anyone's watched Wrangler Star here lately, he's been using one in that tent, and it collapses up, and the chimney pipe's only about, I don't know, 3 inches diameter, maybe 2.5, 3 inches. And that thing works really good. Works really good. So, um, but yeah, wood stoves are the way to go for emergency heat. Anyways, I think I'm going to get off of here. Um, Propane, kerosene, diesel are also good sources. Electricity is a horrible backup heat source. If your only source or your backup is like a little electric room heater or something, that's not good. Yeah, Wrangler Star has endless funds of though. Yeah, all of his stuff. He's one that puts out pretty decent content, but you have to have money to do what he does. Like, I saw a little short video the other day. He was like, someone asked me, "What's the first piece of equipment that you would buy when you start a homestead?" He's like, "I'd buy this Bobcat, this tracked, skid steer." I'm like, "Oh yeah, $100,000." 80 to $100,000 or more. You could easily pay 150,000. How many people starting off on a homestead can afford that? I mean, I've been homesteading for years, and I I don't have anything like that. Doesn't mean the guy's bad, but yeah, it makes a big difference when you've got money. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to get off of here because, well, I'm just going to get off here. That's why. So, thank you all. You are all amazing. Shout out again to Jason Casper. Check out his YouTube channel. Jason Casper is the YouTube channel, and then also Constitutional Stacker. Um, Constitutional Stacker YouTube channel is very good, and he talks obviously about money from a prepper's perspective and stuff and collapse and all that. So Constitutional Stacker and Constitutional Stacker is also on Rumble. So if you do Rumble, you can find him over there too. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching. Please remember my wife in your prayers, and also Grandma Ginger and her family in your prayers. They both need it. And just pray for all of us to getting through all this, and having the wisdom and discernment to know what to do. because the world is getting worse and it's getting crazier. All right. Thank you all for watching. You're all have a blessed night, and we thank you and we love you all. We'll catch you in the next video.